You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns. Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on your journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Jen, a former lawyer, now wellness entrepreneur, tarot card reader, human design reader, yoga instructor, real estate investor, mom, wife,
all those things,
etc., etc.
I'm just Mick, a marketer, energy healer, and prepper. I don't have all them titles right now.
All right, let's get into it. Throughout history, many people have longed to leave Earth behind, preferably for something better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think of Earth as ghetto, I want to leave.
I love that song.
And we've heard a lot of talk from some of the new age spiritual folks about a new Earth, you know, somewhere where high vibrational people can escape this low, densely vibrating space.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so today we are looking into New Earth. Is this real or is it just kind of repackaged bullshit?
But before we get into that,
yes,
we want to remind everybody about our Patreon community for the high vibrational folks.
Yeah.
It's a great way for you guys to support the show. We have a lot of great perks, including bonus content.
Yeah.
Merch discounts. You can get readings with either Jen or myself.
Monthly.
We do a Ask Me Anything session every quarter that you can join. And yeah, it's a lot of great things there. So check it out. It's available at patreon.com/chakras and shotguns. You can find the link in our show description.
All right, let's kick off like we always do with a little breath work, a little meditation to get us in a mindful space.
All right.
Today's time together, look, we record at night a lot and I'm tired. So we're going to do some energetic breath work.
I'm with it.
No visualizations. All you got to do is follow my cues and breathe. All right. So find a comfortable seat. Don't lay down. You might fall asleep. And let's begin. Go ahead and close down your eyes. Maybe even have your palms face up in a more receiving gesture. And we're going to inhale a third of our full capacity of air at a time. All right. So inhale and fill your belly. Inhale and fill up to about your ribs. And then inhale that last third of air and fully fill your chest. Hold at the top. Exhale out through your mouth. Let's do that again. Inhale a third, hold. Inhale another third, hold. Inhale that last third, and exhale out of your mouth. Let's do one more together. Inhale a third, hold. Inhale another third, hold. Inhale that last third, hold. Exhale out through your mouth. Let's do one more. Inhale a third, hold. Inhale another third, hold. Inhale that last third, hold. Can you take one more sip? One more inhale. And exhale out through your mouth. Allow yourself to breathe normally. Take a big inhale. Exhale out through your nose. Go ahead and allow your inhales and exhales to be natural. Noticing any sensations in your body where you might feel more light, more energized. Start to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Even take a big stretch like you just woke up from a nap. Maybe you can trick your body into thinking that it's well rested. Opening up your eyes last. And let's get into the show.
All right. Another dope breath work is what I needed right now.
Child, I'm so tired. I couldn't really inhale with y'all. I needed to do the inhale. I should have did a voiceover.
You need to take a second real quick?
I don't know.
All right, guys. So we're talking about A New Earth. And to me, when I first heard this concept, I was like, is this like a Christopher Nolan movie? Is like the sequel to Interstellar? Like, you know what I'm saying? This feels very sci-fi.
You're such an Interstellar nerd.
I do love Interstellar. It's such a good movie.
It's long.
I love Neil deGrasse Tyson explaining Interstellar too. I've talked about that before on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if you talk to a lot of folks in the spiritual space, this is kind of a real concept that a lot of folks, really believe and buy into.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to dig into it. And so what exactly is the New Earth theory?
Yeah, so let's give the folks the too long didn't read real quick. So the New Earth concept envisions a future where humanity experiences a collective shift in consciousness, leading to a world filled with peace, harmony, and environmental awareness. Don't we need some of that?
Mm.
Individual spiritual growth is seen as the key to unlock the swag, unlocking this idyllic reality, requiring a present moment focus and transcending the limitations of the ego. And what does all of that mean?
Yeah, so I think this concept sounds fire, right? Like it sounds like this like utopia that we will experience if we're able to like all get our thoughts to like this higher frequency or whatever, right? And I think a lot of us would love to manifest that. But I want to talk about like the origins for a second.
Okay.
So it's actually credited to a woman named Alice Bailey, and she lived from 1880 into 1949. So we're talking like late 19th century, early 20th century. She was British, but she eventually moved to the States, and she authored 20 books around this like idea of New Age spirituality. Like she's kind of considered by a lot of people to be the founder or like the kind of originator of New Age spirituality, right? Okay. So she had 20 books, and she channeled a being that was called Dijwal Kul that she communicated with and got a lot of this information.
Yes, thank you. I don't know why I'm acting like I didn't know this already, but thank you for teaching us that. Moving on, but she is said to be the first to introduce this concept on a large scale. So she might not have been the newest, but she was the person through which people heard this new concept to them.
So somebody like she could have took somebody's joke, like I be taking your jokes.
All of the time, yes. How you take my joke and told me that I should have just said it louder.
You gotta know when you got gold. You gotta, recognize it.
Anyways, so she says she channeled these messages from a group of beings, and they spoke about an imminent shift in human consciousness, leading to the emergence of a new civilization aligned with spiritual principles.
So what it makes me think about, and I think people kind of draw this conclusion a lot on like the internet and Reddits and message boards. Is message boards still a thing people say?
Forums, darling.
Forums. Okay. Sorry. I'm dating myself over here. But anyway, so people on the interwebs, they be talking about how from an astrological perspective, we are moving into the age of Aquarius. So we're already there. Some people don't quite know when we are there, when we're not there. I still don't quite fully understand if we're in it now or
right.
Because they don't even agree. Like the astrology community is kind of divided on if we're there or not. My point is, a lot of people will say like the age of Aquarius is kind of like this dawn of the new earth in a lot of ways. So
yeah, to that point, we'll dig a little bit into like the astrology of like, what is the age of Aquarius? We just came out of the age of Aquarius for 2024. I should have worn my sweatshirt, my Aquarius sweatshirt, because now we're in Pisces season. But it really actually talks about the point where the sun touches the equator during the spring equinox. So it doesn't really have anything to do with like late January, early February.
Exactly.
And that point is constantly moving through the zodiac constellations, and it moves into a new sign every 2,160 years. That point has actually been in Pisces for a minute and either has or will hit Aquarius. So like Mick was saying, there's a lot of debate going back and forth as to did he hit or not,
We don't know.
And some people believe that it happened in 2021. Some people believe that we still have another 1,000 years. So we're very off.
That's a big range.
Either we're in it or baby, my great grandkids gonna see it. Like,
yeah, that's why I'm gonna need like some, consensus. We need to figure out where we at.
look, and not to get, well, it's not political. Climate change is not political.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be.
Well.
The way the ice cap melting,
we gonna make it? I don't
know if we're gonna see the age of Aquarius.
Aquarius better hurry up.
Anyway, so Alice is channeling the girls, and they're telling her about this new earth, and she's writing all these books about it and sending that message out throughout the land to whomever will listen. Back in the day, where I know people were probably like, girl, what?
What are you talking about?
Fast forward today, and as Mick mentioned, it's all over the internet. It's on social media. Preparing for this episode made me think about episode 55, where we talked about time, and we talked about the large hadron collider that was like opening up black holes or whatever. And people were all over social media like, don't drink tonight, and make sure you're thinking positive thoughts because we're shifting into a new timeline. I feel like there was some thinking that maybe we were going to shift into new earth, and if your vibration was the best, then you were gonna get to go. Like, this is your one-way ticket. And so I was just like, where are we going? Are we gonna do a shift? And this was earlier into our spiritual journey. And, I can't remember the episode, but also listened to the episode on discernment, because it was just a lot of shit flying around on TikTok that you could easily get caught up in.
Sure.
Yeah. So how did you feel when you first heard about New Earth?
So I was rocking with like the whole like timeline jump for some reason, but then like when I heard like this New Earth thing, my like spidey senses were kind of tingling a little bit. I was like, something about this feels a little off, and this is no shade to anybody who's like, they rock with the whole New Earth theory. But for me, I was just like, it's triggering me a little bit. And I think what was triggering me was I remember having conversations with my parents and my grandparents, and they were talking about how during the Jim Crow period and like kind of when we had Brown versus Board of Education and it was ruled that you couldn't segregate schools anymore, and you had integration happening in a lot of schools, and then this concept of what we saw as white flight, where like all the white people were like, we're going to take our kids out of these inner city public schools and move out to the suburbs, and we're going to have these private schools, and we're going to have gated communities, and we're just like going to wall ourselves off. And so like there was an element of that, and obviously this isn't about race, right? This is more about like vibration and spiritual like belief systems. And it's like, we're going to run away from all the low vibration people and like wall ourselves off so that we can vibrate higher away from them. And so like that concept just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I don't know, I think I was like really kind of struggling with it from that like lens.
Yeah. And let me add a little bit of further explanation. Me and Mick are like right here on this. There were people on social media saying things like the New Earth was going to look like you're driving down the same streets, you're going to the same places, but you can see the people that are left behind, but they can't see you. And like they can't interact with you, but like you could see them stuck in this really dense vibrational earth, and you're experiencing this really peaceful, harmonious type of life, and you've been able to escape like all of the bullshit and the war and all this other stuff. But like because these people haven't finished doing the work, they're stuck. And we just like watch them almost like holograms.
Yeah. There was a lot of that language during like the height of the pandemic. It's like the high vibrational people are going to leave away from the COVID pandemic while like the low vibrational earth still has to like deal with like disease and like pandemic and whatnot, right? It was like this like we're going to escape that hill kind of situation.
Yeah. You were triggered by white flight, but it makes me think of like traditional Christian rapture. Like we gonna be out, we're gonna be in heaven, and everybody else is the Left Behind books. Those freaking Left Behind books. Everybody else is gonna be out here slumming it. It's apocalyptic, mark of the beast, creatures eating up everybody, and we're gonna be playing harps and flutes because we've done what we were supposed to do and we were saved. Which I hope that didn't sound very judgmental. It was, but I didn't want it to come out that way. But it's just, and we're going to get into why specifically this type of thinking can be very problematic.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it really highlights the ego, right? And the more I read a lot of like kind of more Buddhist thought around the ego, I just see how it shows up in a lot of different spaces and places. And so the ego wants to tell you that you're the greatest, that you're the best, that like nobody can do it like you can. You're right about everything. And it wants to maintain that, right? It wants to elevate you as this individual. And it really hones in on this idea of separation. And separation is an illusion in a lot of ways. We're all very intimately connected. You know, I like to talk about how I believe that God is like an ocean. Think of like this massive ocean. And in an ocean, there isn't really a division between one wave and another wave, right? At what point does the first wave stop and the second wave begin, right? You can't really pinpoint that. Like we're all individually waves in this vast ocean. And collectively, that ocean is the consciousness that is God, right? That's how I view it, right? And so it's like I'm a wave and I'm next to you. I can't tell where we're separate. We're actually intimately connected. And so when you have this concept of like we're gonna separate from everybody else, like again, it's playing into this illusion of separation that is driven by the ego. And so for me, I think I have a rejection to the concept as it's been stated in a lot of spaces.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there's also an indictment of this thinking that I have seen and a pattern that I have seen with the people who think like this. There are some echoes of white supremacy, of being able to remove yourself from the quote unquote undesirables.
Yeah.
There is, you know, bringing Christianity back in it. There's a concept called religious supremacy of like, I am better than you because I believe in this is in X, because this is what I believe. And I can understand how a lot of your identity can be wrapped into that, right? Because if I don't get a reward, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Which is very like infantile. We've talked about like ethics and how ethics are really supposed to evolve. It's very like childlike behavior. You clean up your space because it needs to be clean. You don't do it for a cookie.
Yeah.
So there, you know, we see these concepts of, well, I burnt the sage and I had the crystals and I did what I was supposed to do and I manifested and I did all the affirmations and I'm so much lighter than you. When removing yourself from someone is like the antithesis of New Age spirituality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in Christianity, especially like what Jesus was about, the smugness with which people talk about dipping out on the rapture.
We're gonna leave them. We out.
Is so opposite of who you're supposed to be following.
No, you're supposed to be resonating with this frequency of love, right?
Right.
Like that's what the ultimate, message was from Christ, right? Like loving thy neighbor, right? Like it's literally what it's about. And so it's like, are you loving your neighbor if you're like, oh, I'm about to dip on you? Like, good luck. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so like what you were saying about like people who are like, I'm smudging the sage, I'm doing the meditations, I'm doing these things. And so like I get to get this reward of vibrating higher. It's no different from I followed the 10 commandments, I repented my sins. And so you didn't. So I get to inhabit this kingdom of heaven that you don't get to go to, right? Like it's the same idea, just repackaged in a different way. So
yeah. Another thing that's really dangerous that we've been seeing with this kind of thinking, it's not, I don't know if it's directly correlated to New Earth specifically, but this thinking of separation of like, I have the answer and now I'm separate from the people who don't have the answer. And it's something called NPCs or non-player characters. And so it's a video game concept. Yes.
So essentially in a video game, typically it's a role-playing game where like you're playing as a certain character and like you have autonomy to move around the world, but then there's certain characters who are programmed into the game who like they can only like stay at the store and give you a mission. Like they're non-player characters. Like you walk up to them, they give you something to do, and then you come back and like, their whole purpose is to wait for you to come back, kind of thing.
Right. And so I've seen multiple videos on this, and there was actually a really big case recently of people being like, oh, all of these people can't be real. Some of them have to be NPCs. And then it's like, how much easier is it for you to have a lack of empathy for someone that you think is not real?
Mm-hmm.
And what do those NPCs tend to look like for
exactly.
you?
Not like you.
Because it's much more easier to empathize with people who look like you for some people.
Yeah.
But there was a huge case. I feel like this was like maybe a couple of years ago that it all kind of went down. It was this woman named Lori Vallow Daybell, and her new husband had dipped out to Hawaii, and people were looking for her kids. I think they were living in Iowa, and they were like, where are the kids? Yeah. And then it turned out that her and her new husband had killed the kids, and then I think also killed his ex-wife or his wife so they could get married. And they were Mormon, but they were bringing in concepts of like this new earth kind of rapture. It wasn't really Mormon doctrine, but like they kind of took it and then like
warped it a little bit.
Yeah. And so it was, they had told themselves that Lori's kids, her minor children, were zombies or possessed or something, and that their true beings had left and that these were not them at all. And so she unalives them and then maintains that she talks to their real souls and they're happy and all these things. And she ended up getting life in prison. I think her and her husband did. But how dangerous and how cruel that was.
Yeah.
And how demented of like how you got so caught up in I have the true answer that you were kind of seeing whatever you wanted to see. Now, I do think it's a little interesting that, you know, she met this dude and then all of a sudden they kind of cut out everybody who was tied to them that was gonna, you know, hold them back from doing whatever the fuck they wanted to do. Yeah. So, you know, I did side eye it, but for sure. This was her excuse for it.
So, yeah, I think, you know, that case is super interesting and really just like a cautionary tale. But I do want to bring it back to like the New Earth theory and kind of where we fall on it. I think for me, I read the Eckhart Tolle book. It's called A New Earth. And I think what I really liked about it was that it wasn't really focused so much on this idea of like a physical planet that's going to manifest that we're like gonna teleport to or somehow like be separated from. I've like actually seen like on Instagram, I don't know if you've seen those like graphics where they show like Earth and then it like breaks into two. And
oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Eckhart is not on that tip, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
He is more so talking about like this spiritual transformation that we can do and how we can get away from the ego, how we can recognize our ego and when it's trying to influence us and like how we can kind of basically divorce ourselves from some of that thinking and that mindset. And so I thought it was really, really well written. And I think more so if enough people can kind of commit to making that spiritual transformation where they're going within understanding like what this existence and this consciousness is like really meant to show us, that we can actually get to a place where the condition of the earth improves to a point where it is quote unquote a new earth. It's very different from where things were, 30 years ago. And it's not like this metaphysical splitting of the earth, if you will. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think I totally agree with you on all of those things. And I think it's really fascinating being on this journey and really taking the lesson of everything doesn't have to be so literal. Everything doesn't have to be physical and tangible. I think meditating and even taking the time to do that and developing a meditation practice, you end up transcending the physical. You end up feeling more connected to things that you might not be able to see, touch, taste, smell, whatever. But we're so locked in to the physical space. And I remember when I found out it's like a scientific fact that like nothing is solid, like it's all light bouncing off of. It's just light.
Yeah, it's all vibration and light, right? Like it's like if you are vibrating at a certain frequency and like the atoms are like dense enough and like the space between the atoms is small enough, then it appears to be a solid image, but nothing is actually solid because there's still like there's ether in between all of the atoms, right? We talked about that in the Akashic Records episode where like ether is kind of within everything, like that space between the atoms is considered like that fifth element. So sorry to take that.
You really went
that off ramp, but Bring it back.
Yeah, he's our science chair of the podcast. But yeah, like it doesn't matter what color dress you buy. It doesn't matter this table that we're got our stuff on. Like none of it's real, but it's all light and vibration. And so like when you know that, you take a step back and it's like, what is physical? What does that really mean to me? Now you do that for a little bit. Maybe if you're on an edible, then you really go somewhere else. But then when you bring it back and then like someone calls you or you get a Slack message or an email and you got to go do this, you get back into like the doing of being a human. But like remembering that we don't have to be so literal all the time. Your metaphysical Bible study was really inspiring to me because it was really looking into the storytelling and the allegory of the Bible instead of being like, this is what happened.
Exactly. I think even to your point, right, in this New Age spirituality space where we talk about going from like the third dimension to the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension, I think a lot of times people think of that as like this physical change that's going to happen. Yeah. When in reality, it's not necessarily about like moving from one space to another space, right? Like, because that's still 3 dimensions. Like, there's this really dope video, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's talking about if I lay a piece of paper on the table, right? And that piece of paper only recognizes like 2 dimensions, either moving up on the desk or moving side to side on the desk, right? But he said I can add an organizer on top of it and put another piece of paper. But that first piece of paper that's laying on the desk isn't aware of that 3rd dimension of that height going up above it. And so it's like it can't conceptualize the 3rd dimension. And so us who are living in this 3-dimensional world, we're not able to actually recognize or feel the 4th or 5th dimension. Like we're in this 3-dimensional space. And so like a lot of times the new earth theory is paired with this idea of going to like the 4D or 5D earth. Like it's kind of all kind of jumbled together depending on who you talk to. And in that, we're trying to take 3D concepts and apply it to 4 and 5D. Like we're going to move to this other planet, this other physical space. It's like, we're not moving to another 3rd dimensional space in the 4D or 5D space, right? Like it's, I personally think it's about going within, right? Like that's the other element, like that's the other dimension. Like when you are in that meditative space and going within your own consciousness, like that's the next dimension that we can explore, and not necessarily like a different physical space. So that's my thoughts on it.
I almost burst out laughing when you were talking about that, because do you remember when we were on Twitter and they said like December 21st we was gonna get those powers?
Oh, we was ready. That was my favorite day on Twitter. The Twitter OGs know, man. We was talking about all the power. Look, I got my X-Men shirt on right now. I was hoping I was gonna get Nightcrawler's power. I was trying to teleport all over the place.
I think that's one of the things we bonded on. Like if you could have a superpower, and I was like,
teleport.
Ooh, he's so nerdy. Like it. But yes, ditto to all of the things. Ditto to all of the things of getting out of the physical. I think this also made me think of, I'm real good at recommending books that I haven't fully read, so whatever. You
don't have to read all of them. You a manifester.
That's right.
You just get into them, and then
it was also in my astrology chart. But Dolores Cannon, who we've talked about a little bit on the show, she was a hypnotherapist and an author, and she did past life regressions, and she ended up attracting kind of a lot of people who had past lives as other beings. And she wrote a book called 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. And to her, it was about, because let me back up. When I was trying to think about what we wanted to talk about in this episode, I was like, but I know Dolores Cannon talks about a new earth. So what is she saying? Like, where do we shake out on that? Because I really like Dolores Cannon's work. Yeah. She thought about the new earth as an undergoing of a shift in consciousness, leading to a higher vibrational frequency, a new level of existence for humanity. And I think, which I feel like is a definition that we've said multiple times, but again, it wasn't giving the physical necessarily. It was just giving higher vibration. How do you think about things? What is your go-to response when someone cuts you off on the freeway? You know, how do you think when something inconvenient happens? Do you lose it? Do you fall down crying? do you say, I wonder what else is going to happen? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a shift in your perspective
For sure.
on how you live life. Are you like, hey, I'm grateful for this thing that is honestly kind of shitty, but
Yeah.
hey, let's see what happens. Let's see where it goes. And so I feel like we're moving, how I feel about the new earth is I feel like we're moving into that when we see more people are going to therapy, more men are crying on TV. You know, more people are talking about getting in touch with their emotions and doing inner child work. That damn shadow work journal was all over TikTok, but people were buying it and they were looking at their shadow and examining pieces of themselves that we've seen the generations before us not want to touch with a 10-foot pole.
For sure.
Like, people are practicing gratitude and doing affirmations and doing them with their children and talking about a lot of different concepts that, you know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago seemed a little like, what are you on? You know, like, I remember when Michael Phelps became a sponsor or
the meditation app.
For the meditation app, he was like, hey, I struggle with depression. I was like, baby, you telling people about this?
Yeah, you're gonna lose your sponsorships.
But people are being more open and are connecting with each other in a very new way. Like, even the app TikTok, and I know, like, honestly, they should be paying me because all I talk about is TikTok. And I've been really fascinated about it with the concept of like celebrity and like the celebrities on TikTok. We don't want to talk to them. I want to hear what Risa Tisa is talking about with this.
Who did she marry?
Who the fuck did she marry? People want to know, is it real? Is it not? I want to connect with you on that. Oh my gosh, I had a partner like that too. You know, people are in the comments connecting with people like, wow, that's actually a really interesting way to think about that. And that's opened my mind to this many things. And now I'm experimenting with my human existence in this way. And is that not a shift in consciousness? Even like everything that's going on in the world, and we haven't really talked about what's going on in Gaza, but having the perspective of seeing other people's lives and finding out the history and finding your outrage around humanity and the disregard for it, I can fully admit that 10 years ago, I was probably ignorant to a lot of things that were going around the world because we didn't have access to those types of stories. And now there's a worldwide shift and a global calling for a ceasefire. Like, what? That's a shift in consciousness, right? That's a huge monumental shift where everyone is like, I'm calling for humanity to be saved. I'm getting emotional. But if that's not a movement towards New Earth, like, I don't need to move. I hate packing.
Yeah.
You know? So, like,
I'm gonna stay right here.
Let's be here and try to expand our light.
Yeah, I love it. So we'll end on that note. We'd love to hear from you guys in the comments on YouTube or shoot us a DM. Let us know what you think about this concept of the new earth. Do you think we're going to go to a whole new planet if we vibrate high enough? Or do you think it's more of a shift in consciousness? We'd love to have that conversation with you guys. So yeah.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Friendly reminder to check out our Patreon if you have not already. Check out all the perks that we have on that page. Again, the link is in the show description.
And finally, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you listen and or watch.
Namaste.